Let's go to a man that always thinks clearly, or does he?
Yes, he does. And he writes clearly too.
He has concerns over Adelaide this year.
Well,
we played the Grabs a week ago.
What's wrong with that?
We were shocked by it. You're kicking with the wind, Rooch. You like Adelaide. Dwayne Russell joins us. Hello, Dwayne.
Jimbo on the Rooch. I'm just thinking of cracking a Jim Beam and Coke myself. But I have to talk to you first. Drink responsibly, of course.
Absolutely.
Oh, you can handle a little gargle while you're talking to us. You can do it simultaneously. Before we get into today's games, we played your Grab a week ago or 2 weeks ago, our first week back, and you thought Adelaide had problems. Words to that effect.
Well, just looking at their midfield, that's all I was trying to work out who's going through there. You know, where they run Saliga, where they run Pedler, where they run Rankin, who are they going to run through the midfield in terms of their midfield rotation? And with Phil Thorpe improved, look, I think we're getting some questions answered in the pre-season comp. North Melbourne answered a few questions. They kind of showed us that there's a chance of improvement there. North with their kids, and Alistair Clarkson's now without the investigation on his mind, so maybe he's going to be able to coach clearer. The Taron Thomas story, obviously, and
just dropping out there, Dwayne, a little bit. We got you still?
Got me back again, boys?
Yeah, got you back, loud and clear.
Yeah, so I think they'll improve. And look, Adelaide's got some scope to do some damage, but they need improvement out of a number of those players, including Riley Philthorpe, who I'm told is having a really good pre-season.
Yep.
Yeah, bigger and better progresses. You know better than anyone that Kano can make a headline. He wasn't trying to make one here. This morning on Fireball Friday, this really caught my attention. I'm not trying to milk it, but he does not have Port Adelaide in the top 8. What's your thoughts on Port this year?
Oh, they'll make the 8. Yeah, I mean, they could win the whole thing, Port. And they've got... I mean, Collingwood target recruited last year when they knew they had problems, Collingwood. They went and target recruited the 3 or 4 players to play in the spots that they needed to be filled, and it worked well for them. I mean, Bobby Hill... We could rattle off a couple of them, Billy Frampton. So Port Adelaide's done the same, gone and got 2 key defenders and 2 rucks. So why wouldn't they go better?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I was staggered by that. And Kingy hasn't got him in the top 6. He's picked 6 teams as a lock and doesn't know who'll fill 7th and 8th.
Is this the toughest 8 to pick in a long time, Dwayne? Because we know there are standouts, but that middle pack where we always talk about who's going to flow between 5 and 13, is that the one that's got the greatest mystery group we've ever had probably in AFL history? Just AFL competition, I mean.
No, I agree with you. The middle group's tough, but I don't have Port Adelaide in the middle group.
Okay.
I have them in the top 6. I have them in the locks group. I think they'll get better this year. I mean, finals last year, they did lack a ruck. Lycett going down, that was a big cost to them. Jonas, great career, but it wasn't quite there at the end for him. And they desperately needed to go and get a Radagalier. And I think they've done well by getting Zerk Thatcher Radagalier and by getting Solder, who's a really good ruck. You don't need to be paying overs for a ruck. But I mean, there's a couple of other teams that'll improve. Sydney will improve with Grundy. I think they've done well with Grundy. And there's a number of teams that'll get better. I think it was Steele Sidebottom who said on SEN last week, if Collingwood, play as well as they do, as they did this year, the last year, it won't be good enough to win the flag this year. You do have to improve. Yep. But Port Adelaide's gone and target recruited well, I think.
Just on Collingwood, how do they improve? I was looking at their list today. We're giving our predictions next week for what it's worth. But how do Collingwood improve?
Well, they do have a number of good young players that can get better. If you can believe that Nick Dacos can get better, if you can believe that Josh Dacos can get better, if you can believe that they're going to find, an extra forward like an Ash Johnson and a couple of those guys. But I think they will. I don't think they're... I haven't picked them for the flag.
No.
Endeavour, Desire, all that kind of stuff, we argue whether that drops off once you've won a flag. So there's a few of those. It happened with Geelong. This time last year, a few, including Kano, thought that Geelong were unbeatable, and they missed the 8. So things can happen. If you get injuries to the wrong guys, it can happen. They've got a great core, Collingwood. They've still got a fantastic group of players, but it doesn't mean that they're automatically going to get to the grand final again.
I think they've got a suspect forward line. Just on the Cats, your old mob, I haven't got them in the 8.
No, neither have I. But there's Toby Conway, who they got when they traded Clark to Fremantle. They got a draft pick that they used to go and get another tall, a big ruckman. We saw Toby Conway in that game against Carlton this week. Mitch Nevitt, Shannon Neal. There's three young, tall guys that really no one knows anything about. So if they all of a sudden get three good young talls going, then it's a regeneration of sorts. Holmes is going to get better, but Dangerfield's a year older. Hawkins is fit at the moment, so he's a year older, but he's looking really good. Jeremy Cameron's coming off a pretty, average season by his standards, so they could get better, but I don't have them in the 8 either.
Dwayne, you saw the Western Bulldogs with Brendan Lade in the big chair beat Hawthorn by 25 points today. The Western Bulldogs are one of those teams that frustrates a lot of the pundits because we know the talents there might not be spread in all the right areas. Can you believe in the Dogs this year?
I can, but I can believe that it can go awry as well.
Yes.
Norton's a great forward. Jamari Ugle-Hagen's a great forward, but are they going to be consistent enough? Are they going to take, flying for marks? We know what it's like with Georgiades. It's great when he's on, but when he goes missing for those patches, do you want that big leaping forward all the time? Would you rather just a lead-up, more reliable
But what about at the other end?
What
are they like at the back at the moment?
Yeah, so Buku Kamas, I spoke to him today, actually. He's been thrown back by the Dogs, and he looked good back there. Yeah. So they've gone and tried to turn that forward into a defender because they have known that they've got some flaws there.
Yep.
They can do that because they've got Darcy to play forward now. Sam Darcy looked really good in the ruck today. So he had an injury interrupt the season last year. He's going to be better. And it was hard to take anything out of today because the Dogs didn't play, Bontempelli, Jamari Ugle-Hagen, Tim English, Waitman, Treloar, they didn't play in the early game against the Hawks. So the Hawks played their best lineup early and the Dogs saved their best till last when the Hawks played their reserves team. So we didn't really get a fair lineup of the two best teams.
Seriously, why would the two teams do that?
Why would they do it? Yeah,
what's the thinking there?
We spoke to Chad Corns, and both clubs have been in touch with each other. They're going to play their best sides tonight for the first 3 terms.
My only guess is that the Bulldogs have got a family day that started at 4 o'clock today, so they maybe wanted their players to play in the late game and draw the crowd. But I don't know that for fact. I'm just trying to guess like you guys because it did seem crazy to me. There was a huge crowd there early, and they were deprived of seeing Bontempelli, Jamari Ugle-Hagen, Tim English, etc. They were deprived of those guys. You had to stick around until 3:30 to see them.
Got a text here that said, I had a mullet in the 80s thanks to Dwayne Akey Breaky Russell. You did have a good mullet back in the day. St Kilda and Essendon. I don't have St Kilda in the top 8, but Ross scares me. Essendon, though, that was disappointing today. 66 points. I know it's just a trial game, but gee.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I like to be able to give you answers, you guys, when you ring up. But when you're stuck in Melbourne traffic for 2 hours, trying to get home from Melbourne, and I haven't seen the Essendon game yet, I didn't see how bad they were. I did see how bad the Suns were last night. And I know where you're at when it comes to looking at a disappointing preseason performance. You think, oh, my goodness, well, not again from the Suns. And I hope that's not the feeling today for Essendon fans. I haven't seen that game yet, so I'm looking forward to – were they bad, were they?
Yeah, well, can you make a call to Matthew Lloyd for us just to make sure he's okay? Just check in on him for us, will you?
Okay, I will.
They just didn't look like they had the ability to score against the St Kilda side that just moved the ball so quickly, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that's why next week is reassessment week for me. We're going to see what some of these teams do next week. And I think, North Melbourne plays St Kilda next week. So it'll be a reassessment time for North. If they can do what they did against Collingwood, after doing it in round 24 last year, then you can reassess North. The Gold Coast don't do something, genuinely good against the Giants. You'll start to reassess how tough a task it is for Damien Hardwick up there. So there's a few teams. You won't reassess Collingwood necessarily off what happened on the weekend, but, if Essendon dish the same thing up 2 weeks in a row, you've got to have a think about, how many of these young kids are going to be the next stars of the future?
Yeah. So then how do you assess Melbourne with everything that's been happening at that football club off the field?
Yeah, and it's got to be disruptive. If you're a young Melbourne player and, someone all of a sudden says, do you want to do an interview on SEN? You're thinking to yourself, do I really want to be answering the Oliver questions? Do I really want to be answering the Smith questions?
Yeah.
So that's the dilemma they're in right now. It's got to be destructive. I mean, Simon Goodwin's been in the press for a couple of years as well.
Yes.
So, it's got to be destructive. But wins can change things quickly. So they get off to a good start, then it's a different world they're living in. But in some ways, Melbourne can't really prove anything like Port until they get back to the finals and don't get beaten in straight sets.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's 2 years in a row straight sets for Melbourne, wasn't it?
Rich, you keep hanging your hat on this one.
Yeah.
No, you hang your hat on this one. The losses were starkly different.
I know, but
different.
But I just see a great group and a wasted opportunity.
Oh, definitely. All the KPIs
after everything they said,
side,
win a flag in Perth after a long drought. We've got to win one in Melbourne for our fans because they missed out on seeing it, and they've not delivered. They've been a major failure.
And their best player still in doubt for round one,
yes.
Clayton Oliver. They don't have a backup ruck for Max Gawn this year. Now they've let Grundy go.
Yeah.
And James Jordan looked really good for Sydney a couple of days ago as well. So they've lost another that they might have used in the midfield. Now that they know that they're, are going to be a midfielder or a defensive midfielder like Angus Brayshaw short.
Yeah, Sydney have recruited well. We know the Port Adelaide game is going to be a cracker. It gets underway at 5 o'clock. Can't wait to get there and watch that one. Then the West Coast take on Fremantle. Can you ever remember the two WA sides being so insignificant as they are at the moment? I say that in the politest way possible.
Yeah, no, I can hear you rubbing it in. It's nice, actually, because the two South Australian sides are relevant. So, yeah, let's take it while we can get it, because I like the fact that Adelaide and Port Adelaide are both so competitive right now. I like the fact that people are talking about Adelaide. Not everyone's got them in the 8. Not everyone thinks that they're going to win the flag. But there's still a big doubt on the fact they could be good. They could have done some damage in the finals last year.
Yep.
I mean, if Ben Keys gets that goal paid, who knows? The whole world might have changed.
So why are your colleagues at SEN Melbourne so determined to set up side issues about Matthew Nicks?
Well, I think he's the only out-of-contract coach. So, when you default to why aren't you signing him up? Kingy, yeah, I know he rattled that case today, but I'll sign him up in the next week. I know, Kimbo, you've been on this one. I'll sign him up and it'll all be sorted, won't it?
Yep.
I hope so.
I agree 100%.
I hope so, Dwayne.
Dwayne, have a great weekend. Have a great year. Who are you tipping for the flag?
Oh, shall I just go out on a limb and do a Cornsey and say Port?
Yeah,
Why
I'm with
not?
you. I've
Why
tipped
not?
Port.
Yeah,
I
why
like
not?
it. 13-1. I think they're into 11s. Remember what you're gambling with. There's absolutely no reason this year. They got the ingredients. Just got to get the recipe right.
Anything for you, Dwayne.
Yep.
All right, just breathe in a bit of that Alberton air for me tonight. Just that's what I'm missing. Just breathe it in for me if you can.
Some of us have it in our veins, Dwayne.
Oh, dear. Fair dinkum. You'll end up
Some
with
of us were blessed to be born there.
Really? You'll end up with diarrhea if you do that.
Oh, this is what I put
Hey?
up with. You know, for weeks, if not months or years, Kim has made certain assertions about the character of Port Adelaide people. He lost his keys at Alberton today. Guess who took them from him?
They were stolen.
By David Wildy. I reckon it was a conspiracy for them to set up a whole day of just smearing Port Adelaide's name.
I don't know how you can have two bunch of keys in a pair of shorts and not realise you got two, but I don't know what's happened to the Big Willie. Hey, Dwayne, I really... What?
I'll take you down to Semaphore Road for lunch one day, Kimbo, and we'll have a whole reset of the Port Adelaide people.
I'll hold you to that, Dwayne. I look forward to it. All right, mate, we'll catch up soon.
Thanks, Dwayne.
You wouldn't go past Tennyson.
No, you wouldn't get past. Not wouldn't go past. You wouldn't get past.
That is harsh. That is harsh. I'm a Greenacres boy, and you're a Paraka boy. Down the road.
That's true.
All right, Dwayne Russell. He's an absolute ripper. You can hear him every day on SEN. Right around Australia.